How's it going everybody? MyCupOfTea here, back with another reaction video, and we're here to continue the Pokemon Marathon Extravaganza Hapalooza Adventure Saga session. Yes, that's everything, yes. Yay. Now I think it's time we take a little break from watching the Pokemon battles, you know, chill for a second, and just watch a review of the Pokemon series. Specifically, let's watch the Pokemon Original Series anime review. And this was requested by Nothing Important. Bam, shouts out to you, Nothing Important. Shouts out to you. This is gonna be curious. I'm gonna be curious because I know I remember watching a few episodes from the original series, but I don't remember everything. So let's just watch this anime review. I wonder if it's like still holds up and how good it was. Also, I have not eaten anything, so I'll be having my honey bun and my juice. You can't see because like it's kind of green.
Welcome one and all to my review of every Pokemon anime series. In this video, we're starting all the way from the beginning. The original Pokemon anime series.
Okay.
This is definitely the most iconic because it's the very first one, and for many of us was the gateway to the Pokemon franchise as a whole. Because it played such a big part in many of our childhoods, there's a huge portion of the fandom that is very attached to this series, and even go as far as to say that the Pokemon anime was better when it was like this.
Whoa,
but was the series really as good as we remember it to be?
Yeah,
or are we just blinded by nostalgia? Well, I took it upon myself to rewatch every single episode to find out the answer.
Oh, wow.
And to keep things as objective as possible, I won't just be basing things off my opinion alone. So joining me today are my pals JPR.
Good morning, everybody.
Hey, JPR.
Good morning, it's JPR here.
Hey.
And Niall Kelly.
Hello everyone, I'm
Niall Kelly.
In this review, we'll be going over all the great things about the series, as well as going over the not so great things, and then wrapping it up with the final verdict of the series. So let's not waste any more time and get started with our retrospective review of the original Pokemon anime series.
That's nice how he has more people like giving their intake on this, so it's not just his opinions on this review, because again, it could be subjective. Sorry, there's like something flying around. It could be nostalgia based, so if he has more people talking and giving their take on it, it could be like a better, I guess you could say, review. I don't know what the words I'm trying to say is, but it should be fun. This should be fun. Of course, you got to go over that iconic opening. Also, better hear some noise in a second. I'm gonna try to put the honey bun away from the mic.
Off, I want to talk about one of the best things about the original series, and it's the portrayal of Ash's growth as a trainer. This is where he officially becomes a Pokemon trainer, so he's starting from square one. A lot of his Kanto journey is about introducing the Pokemon world to not only him, but to us, the audience. So it's through Ash where we learn about battles, type matchups, everything.
Oh yeah, Ash didn't know anything in the beginning.
Wasn't too great.
He's let me use thunder against his rock.
Legit wins, but by the time he reaches the Indigo League, you'll notice that he somewhat has the basics down and knows what he's doing. For the most part. That's already quite a change considering he was pretty bad in the beginning. You'll even notice his growth through Pikachu. Of course, we all know that in the beginning, Pikachu had zero respect for Ash, but even after the duo overcomes their rocky start, you'll notice that Pikachu was kind of a wimp and refused to battle a lot of the time. However, as the series progressed, it slowly started to toughen up.
I forgot Pikachu did that. He said, nah. I'm gonna hide over here. You use this Pokemon. That's going into battle.
And refused to battle a lot
of the time. Use this.
However, as the series progressed, it slowly started to toughen up and become Ash's most reliable Pokemon in Kanto.
So reliable.
Then we get to the Orange Islands, which only improved on what he started in Kanto. But more on that later. And finally, we finish off with Johto, where Ash is able to get legit gym battle wins and even defeats his rival Gary. The difference between Ash in the start of the series and Ash at the very end is day and night. And honestly, it's all due to the fact that the original series had the benefit of covering 2 Pokemon generations. Every series after this, prior to Pokemon Journeys of course, typically only focuses on one main region before passing the torch to the next.
Interesting. I mean,
What's
that
great
makes
about
sense.
the original series is that it has Ash go through Kanto, the Orange Islands, and Johto, so he has way more experiences in this series than in any other. This was really the foundation for Ash Ketchum's character, and it's what made him an even better trainer in the following series.
Another entertaining aspect of the original series is the dynamic of our main cast, Ash, Brock and Misty. This was the first ever group of friends that we got. They taught us exactly how the Pokemon anime creates such strong bonds between Ash and his companions for years to come. Whether you enjoyed the original series or not, I think almost everyone comes to appreciate the bond between the original trio, because they started it all. Although Misty and Brock might not have had much development in the original series, they still had a great chemistry with Ash. He was a rookie trainer who needed guidance, and he got the support he needed from Brock and Misty. He met Misty in the first episode, and despite them not getting along at first, they came to develop a strong friendship. Misty would constantly mock and tease Ash for not knowing what he was doing, but it worked. Misty was a gym leader at the Cerulean Gym, so she had a lot more experience than Ash to begin with.
I got server pausing. And Ash was quick with the comebacks. Ash was quick with these comebacks when Misty was trying to disrespect him. I know some people know, but Ash was pretty good at like the insults, the comeback games. He was crazy with it.
And even she helped him grow as a trainer in her own way. And then came Brock, the first ever gym leader that Ash came up against. And we all love Brock. He's the caring, lovable guy that anyone would want around in a sticky situation. Well, except for Nurse Joy. He was really the glue that held the original series together, making sure Ash and Misty aren't fighting too much, and making sure everyone is fed. We see in one episode where Brock falls sick, just how much they depend on him. The main reason the fans get so hyped every time Brock and Misty return is because of how much they are loved in the original trio. And us fans will always look back at them with nostalgia and remember some really great moments between them.
Iconic trio.
Now,
Iconic
even though Ash
trio.
kinda sucked in the beginning, arguably one of the strongest aspects of the original series was the Kanto leg of the journey, believe it or not. Things were a lot different back then. Nobody expected the Pokemon anime to last more than a year or two at most. As a result, we got a much better paced story with Ash getting all of his badges and making his way through the Indigo League in only 80 episodes. This meant substantially less filler than your average Pokemon season. But even then, the filler that we did receive was really, really good. So many of Kanto's most memorable episodes were in fact fillers, like Island of the Giant Pokemon, the Ghost of Maiden's Peak, the Flame Pokemon-a-thon,
The Ghost was a filler episode?
And a big reason as to why these episodes stick out is how they're written. They're corny, ridiculous, and just what you want to see happening in a Pokemon world. It's like the writers knew all the right scenarios to put Ash and his friends in. Both the pacing and the comedic writing kept the Kanto series refreshing and entertaining nearly every
Oh dear God, Pikachu.
Next up, let's take a Lapras trip down to the Orange Island. Although this is where we lost our main man Brock for a bit and got... Oh! The best part of this saga is that we managed to get some really good development for Ash here. Like John mentioned before, nobody expected the anime to last long, so once they got through all the in-game plot points like the League, the anime had the liberty to do whatever they wanted when it came time for the Orange Islands. This was essentially like a post-game for Ash. We got to see him participate in fun gym challenges that only strengthened the bonds between him and his Pokemon, things like Squirtle learning Hydro Pump, catching Lapras and Snorlax, Ash battling and even learning from Lorelei, also known as Prima in the dub. I don't get why they changed that, it was stupid. And probably the biggest thing we all remember the Orange Islands for, Charizard obeying Ash. Who doesn't love that? And then of course, in the end, we also get Ash's first full battle against Drake and manages to win. This almost felt like the writer's way of redeeming Ash for his loss in the Indigo League, which was pretty cool. And yeah, maybe the Orange Islands doesn't count as a traditional Pokemon League, but this was still a pretty big and important moment for Ash and his Pokemon. Speaking of which...
One of the best parts of the original series was of course Ash's Pokemon. He started off with just Pikachu, and we have all come to love Ash's bond with it over the years.
Oh yeah,
as it
the best bond ever, one of the
each
best.
Series. And this is where it all started for the two. Undoubtedly, in the original series, Ash had a special bond with all of his Pokemon. He doesn't just use them for battling, but also sees them as partners and develops great friendships with them.
Look at that squad.
Just like Ash, as fans were
Come on now.
to the first set of Pokemon he ever caught. A prime example being his Butterfree, a Pokemon that only appeared up until episode 21, but was still greatly missed after its emotional send-off.
No. I talked over. What did he say? I'm sorry.
Another appeared up to the first set of Pokemon he ever caught. A prime example being his Butterfree, a Pokemon that only appeared up until episode 21, but was still greatly missed after its emotional send-off. Another great one is his Bulbasaur, one of Ash's earliest captures and the Pokemon who's been with him the longest besides Pikachu. We all love seeing his Charmander evolve, but when it wouldn't obey him, it was frustrating. But it was a great story arc that they went through, learning to obey Ash in the Orange Islands, and then not long after in Johto, Ash left it to train in another very emotional goodbye. All of his Pokemon had different personalities, but still took after Ash. And the main reason we get so excited to see all of his old Pokemon return is because the initial bond that we had with it in the original series. As Ash went into Johto, we saw a shift in his old team, but we came to love and enjoy his new Pokemon as well. The likes of Cyndaquil, Bayleaf, Heracross and Noctowl all became quick fan favourites, and with the old Pokemon still making returns from time to time, it was nice to see a blend of his original Kanto team and his newer Johto team. And even to this day, fans hope to see some of his original series Pokemon return.
Since we mentioned Ash's Pokemon, let's talk about how they actually performed in battle. Now, it's no secret that many of Ash's Kanto gym battles seemed like cop-outs. I mean, sprinklers? In a rock gym? Are you kidding me? But that all goes out the window when Ash rolls into Johto. Ash earns all of these badges fair and square, and to make it even better, we see a wide variety of his Pokemon from both Kanto and Johto take these gyms on. Charizard gets to be the star in the battle against Falkner, Cyndaquil shines against both Bugsy and Jasmine, Totodile against Whitney, Noctowl against Morty, Bayleaf against Chuck, Pikachu against Price, and surprisingly, both Snorlax and Charizard against Claire. We don't typically see this much variety in Ash's gym battles. We get a great blend of Ash relying on his old veterans and also proving the worth of his newer Pokemon. As boring and forgettable as Johto can be sometimes, this is definitely one of its redeeming factors.
After 2 seasons of some very bland and boring filler episodes, we finally got onto Season 5.
Oh, not the fillers.
This season is by far the best in the original series.
Oh,
unlike the 2 seasons that came before, this one actually had a lot of story and character development. It still has its fair share of filler episodes, but there's so much more you can enjoy. It starts off strong with the Whirl Islands. Now this arc isn't perfect, but it still has some very strong episodes. It features the World Cup, which finally gives Misty some development, and we finally get to see another battle between her and Ash. And then comes the Team Rocket arc, where they try to capture Lugia. And of course the return of Richie. It's a shame that Ash never got a rematch with Richie, but at least we saw him return. Along with other recurring characters like Butch and Cassidy. There's even the second Team Rocket focused saga, including Lance and the Lake of Rage, which debuts the Red Gyarados, which we have seen return in Pokemon Journey, and the Lakers like Butch and Cassidy. There's even the second Team Rocket focused saga, including Lance.
Lance? Is that the same Lance from that was in the Master 8 tournament? Is that Lance? He's a Team Rocket. He was a Team Red Rocket member. Team Rocket. Team Rocket. He's part of Team Rocket back then? No way.
And the Lake of Rage, Butch and Cassidy. There's even the second Team Rocket focused saga, including Lance and the Lake of Rage, which debuts the Red Gyarados, which we have seen return in Pokemon Journeys. This season also has a lot of development for gym leaders. Ash doesn't just meet them and battle them. 3 gym leaders of the season, Jasmine, Price and Claire, all have their own dedicated stories and focused episodes, which made you enjoy the gym battles even more because you care more about the characters. The season only gets better towards the end, with Ash receiving the Larvitar egg and promising to take it back to its home on Mount Silver. And with episode 261 changing the animation style and having Pokemon's first ever digital animated episode, it was really cool to see this change up after having the same animation since the start. And of course it all ends off with the Johto League, but more on that soon. All in all, this was a standout season for Johto and the entire original series, and it will always be a joy to watch. Now I'll pass it on to Zac to talk more about the Johto League.
As most of us already know by now, the Johto League is one of the biggest standouts of this series. It was a huge step up from the Indigo League in every way. For starters, Team Rocket are put in the side as concessionists, so they don't do that stupid annoying thing where they interrupt the league. This allowed us to truly focus on the league and see almost every single battle Ash participates in its entirety. And even though he's facing off against random trainers like Macy and Jackson, the league does a good job at introducing these characters before their matches to make them a bit more interesting when it's time to face off Ash. And of course, there's Ash versus Gary, where they finally settled their rivalry. This battle was done really well, and we got to see how strong Gary actually is, but also how good Ash is at making a comeback. He was finally able to prove to his longtime rival that he is a good trainer, and that was awesome. Just an overall satisfying conclusion after having their rivalry build up for 270 episodes. The Johto League is also amazing because of all the Pokemon Ash uses. We see Ash using literally every Pokemon he has at his disposal at this point. Well, except Kingler. Rest in peace. Aside from Ash's Johto team, we also get the return of Bulbasaur and Squirtle, Charizard of course, Snorlax, Heracross, even Muck and Tauros get some screen time. I love this so much. This really felt like a final hurrah for the original series, and not just that, but with the introduction of Harrison, it's also the perfect setup for the next series. Like, to this day, it's still so cool to see Harrison use a freaking Blaziken in Johto. That's an awesome introduction and segue to Generation 3, and that's what truly makes the Johto League so great. Not only was it a fantastic league arc, but it's also a really solid conclusion to the original series as a whole. And there you have it, all the great aspects to the original series. Now to be fair and talk about all the things we believe kinda sucked. Take it away now.
Okay, so that's like almost 12 minutes of what's great about it. So it's gonna be 12 minutes of what's not great about it. Gotcha.
Niall.
Here we go.
One of the main problems in the Indigo League season were the gym battles. This was the start of the Pokemon anime, and they had to find a way to bring battling from the games into the show. At first, they seemed to go for a more fun and loose way of battling. There was less rules. You saw a lot of instances where a move would affect a Pokemon that it shouldn't be able to. For example, in the first gym battle with Ash's Pikachu, being able to hit Brock's Onix with an electric type attack. This was of course still the early stages of the anime, so they were going to make a lot of mistakes, but they got the Kanto gym battles completely wrong. A lot of the battles only lasted a few minutes and barely featured any action. For example, the battles of Brock, Misty and Koga, they all looked like they had potential to be great battles, The Misty battle was going quite well. To this day, I want to know who would have won that battle, but it was interrupted by Team Rocket before we could see it finish, something that happened way too much. This also happened in the Erica gym battle and the first Koga battle. This would take up half the episode, and then when it's time for Ash to actually battle the gym leader, there would only be a few minutes left, and in Koga's case, the battle was left underwhelming. There are two decent gym battles in Kanto, being Lieutenant Surge and Blame, but this isn't enough to save the battles as a whole. We need a lot more consistency with the quality of battles. The anime learned from this mistake though in the later regions. It's just a shame we never got to see these Kanto battles play out properly.
Speaking of poorly played out things in Kanto, everyone loves and remembers Gary. For some reason. What a lot of people don't remember is that Gary scarcely ever appears throughout the Kanto series. Though he's mentioned a lot by Professor Oak, Gary only ever makes 6 major appearances before the Indigo League starts. And even in the Indigo League, he and Ash don't even battle. In fact, Gary gets knocked out before Ash does and just goes home. And while we're on the topic of the Indigo League, who are these people that Ash faces? He doesn't meet up with any of the trainers from earlier in the series that he promised to battle again. He basically just fights a bunch of nobodies. And who could forget that incredibly anticlimactic ending where Charizard just falls asleep and it's ruled as a forfeit? This was everything that Ash's journey had led to, and the results were more than disappointing. At the very least, we got to see some of his underused Pokemon shine, like Kingler and Muck, but other than that, the battles weren't amazing. But anyways, getting back to Gary, the two of them don't even have a battle until episode 116 after Ash comes home from the Orange Islands. For such a beloved rival of Ash, that's a startling lack of interaction between them. Things get a lot better down the line in Johto, but as for the Kanto series, Gary left a lot to be desired.
I think that's why Paul's a superior rival.
Now, you know what else
Ash
was left to be desired? Brock and Misty. Don't get me wrong, I love them, and I'm sure most people who grew up with the original series would tell you the same, but looking back, you'll notice that Brock and Misty don't really do anything. In every other series, there's at least one companion that has a definitive goal we see them actively working towards alongside Ash. But in the original series, Brock and Misty don't have much to do. For Brock, it wasn't too bad. Sure, his goal is to be the best breeder, and we do get a couple of breeder-focused episodes, but his true purpose has always been to be the knowledgeable secondary character who gives vital tips to the newbie Ash, and to be his personal cook. So he's not that bad, I guess. Misty, however, definitely had it the worst. In the start of the series, it's never really established what her goal is. All she really did is nag about her bike and gave Ash crap 90% of the time, and then eventually took a chill pill once Togepi came along. That's not really interesting. We know she specializes in water types, but it isn't until the Whirl Islands, in the final season of the series, that it's fully established that Misty's ultimate goal is to be a water Pokemon master. Would have been nice to know sooner. Because of this, a good chunk of the last season has episodes dedicated to developing Misty and her goal, which yes, it is a good thing, but at this point it's a little too late to make her interesting because she's almost leaving. Where were all of these character focused episodes in the first 4 seasons?
Wow, I didn't mean to pause right there, but wow, you know what? I don't remember. I didn't watch that many Pokemon episodes. I might have stopped at around like season 2 or 3. Basically, I stopped whenever Ash lost to Richie. The other one I had a Pikachu. I remember seeing that battle, kind of. And after that, I don't remember anything else. I thought Missy announced her goal back then, early on. I guess I was mistaken. Okay. Okay.
There were barely any. Because Brock and Misty didn't get much focus or development, the series is forced to mostly rely on Ash for its interesting episodes. And it makes sense since he's the main character, but the problem with solely relying on Ash is that when he isn't the main focus of an episode, 9 times out of 10, we're gonna be greeted with...
Is it the filler?
Don't worry, we're gonna tackle that beast soon. But for now, let's just finish off with the characters.
Everyone's favourite Pokemon watcher, Tracy Sketchit.
Yeah, I love Tracy.
This guy is going to be the worst companion of all time. In the Orange Islands, Brock decided to stay with Professor Ivy so he could help around the house. But we all know why he really stayed there. So someone had to come in and fill the void. That person was Tracy.
I respect it.
I think the main problem that a lot of the fans have with Tracy is that he was directly brought in to take Brock's place, but he was forever in Brock's shadow. We always knew whenever Brock came back, Tracy would be forgotten about. He had
Get out of here, Tracy.
Being a nice, responsible guy who takes care of people. He was also a Pokemon watcher, so just like Brock, he knew a hell of a lot about Pokemon. Tracy was only around for the Orange Islands arc, and after it was done, it just felt a bit pointless. Like his character really wasn't that important. Sure, he had some...
I got a phone call from my mother. I always gotta answer this. Alright, I am back. Sorry about that. I don't even know what happened. Let's go back. Tracy!
And after it was done, it just felt a bit pointless. Like his character really wasn't that important. Sure, he had some cool Pokemon like his Scyther, but not really much was done with it. There was a lot of wasted potential. I definitely think Tracy gets way too much hate, but I can also understand why people don't like him. He doesn't really have much going for it.
He sounds
just a
boring to
blander
me.
version of Brock. After the Orange Islands, he becomes Professor Oak's assistant, and every fan rejoices that he won't be going to Johto with Ash and Misty, but instead Brock will return. It was a very small period of time that Tracy was with Ash, but will always be remembered as one of the worst parts of the original series.
Man,
and to this day, Tracy remains somewhere at Oak's lab. We haven't seen him since Black and White, so
He's
who
just
knows, maybe
somewhere.
Oak fired the guy.
He's just there.
Okay, now let's go from mishandled characters to mishandled Pokemon. As memorable as Ash's original series Pokemon were, you gotta admit, they were handled a little weird. Some clearly got more shine than others. I'm looking at you, Kanto starters, which left other team members like Krabby, Muck, and even Tauros to rarely see the light of day. There wasn't really a balance in usage between these guys. Things only get weirder when Ash goes to Johto. This was the only region that Ash traveled to without completely resetting his team, as he's done in every series since then. While it was nice to get a little more time with Ash's old Kanto Pokemon, the result is a weird imbalance in Ash's team as he catches new Pokemon while shuffling out old ones. In the beginning of Johto, it's actually joked about several times how Ash's Charizard is quite literally unfair for his lower level competition. So sadly, all of Ash's Kanto Pokemon have to bite the dust in a series of underwhelming goodbyes. Though Ash hangs on to Squirtle and Bulbasaur for a while longer, they hardly do anything in Johto since the spotlight is all on the new Pokemon. Bulbasaur actually sticks around for most of the Johto adventure, but that's easy to forget about since Ash almost exclusively uses Chikorita instead. I mean, they even had some of the same moves like Razor Leaf and Vine. What was the point of that? With not much to do, Bulbasaur is finally called back to Oak's lab later in the final season of the series. But even worse than that was the treatment of one of Ash's new Pokemon, Heracross. Heracross was Ash's first new Pokemon captured in Johto, but he gets shafted incredibly fast. It's a shame because it had a lot of potential. Heracross gets one notable battle against Shingo's Caesar early in the series, before it's hastily shipped off to Oak's lab in exchange for one of Ash's Tauros who he uses for all of 5 minutes.
What the heck, Ash?
Then never appears again until the Johto League begins. Things finally get settled around the second half of Johto, but for a large portion of the series, Ash's core team is a complete mess.
Alright,
and he
now that we've
somehow
gone over all
with
the problems with the characters in Pokemon, we can finally get to one of the biggest problems the original series had.
The biggest? Filler!
My god.
How bad was
this series?
I don't remember.
Had so much
How much filler are we talking? How much filler
Now,
are we
there's
talking?
nothing wrong with filler, as it can be quite enjoyable when done right.
Wrong.
In fact, like John said earlier, the original series has its good share of fun and
Stay
interesting
back.
filler. In Kanto. After that, the filler just gets worse and worse as the series goes on. The Orange Islands is where we get our first batch of really bad and boring filler episodes, but the arc is pretty short, so we get through those fast. But when we get to Johto, Mother of God, why? On top of getting bland filler, the Johto saga just gives us way too much of it. I mean, Johto is even known for being the region with the most amount of filler episodes. I believe the biggest problem was that the anime writers at the time didn't know how to pace Ash's Johto journeys. Once they realized the Pokemon franchise wasn't going anywhere, the anime had to adapt and basically learned how to extend itself to last with the corresponding Pokemon generation. Because of this, Johto couldn't have the same pacing as Kanto, as it wouldn't work. It would end way too quickly. So to make Johto last all the way until Gen 3, they bombarded us with endless filler to pad out the spacing between major episodes. When we get those major Ash episodes, whether they be captures, gym battles, or even evolutions, they're great. But when that isn't the case, then it's mostly just... This was annoying, as it made the anime super formulaic. Most episodes consisted of the same basic plot. Ash and the gang arrive at some location, meet a new Pokemon and or trainer, Team Rocket show up to steal the new Pokemon or Pikachu, they blast off, the end. Yeah, later series do the same thing, but I feel like the original series is the most annoying and boring version.
They keep doing it like constantly.
And that's another problem with the original series. Team Rocket. If you're a regular viewer of my channel, then it should come as no surprise that I absolutely despise Team Rocket.
Oh dang,
and it all stems from here. It's exhausting to have the trio of Jesse, James, and Meowth show up every single episode to do the same goddamn thing over and over and over again.
No, he's actually spitting. He's spitting. That's actually facts. Yeah, no. Just be like every single episode they show up, they ruin something. Like, hey, you were doing something? Not now. You're fighting us now. We're gonna capture Pikachu. They never. Well, they caught it like a couple times. They didn't like capture it, but they caught it. Then the plans got foiled. It's like every single episode they just show up and we're blasting off again. We're blasting off again. I don't know how many times I gotta hear their stupid song to protect the world for devastation to unite all people in our nation.
And sometimes they even show up twice in an episode. Like blasting off once wasn't enough.
Oh, they came back and
their
said
only
2
purpose in the
same
original series
episode?
is to fill up time in an episode so that Ash and the gang have something to do. They're the main source of conflict. Apparently they didn't know how to make interesting episodes without them, because most of the time, even when Team Rocket shouldn't be showing up, they still do.
We're here still.
There's nothing worse than watching an episode that's turning out to be great and having Team Rocket interrupt halfway through and ruin it. Now, as characters, I think they're pretty interesting, and when we get episodes focused on them as individuals or even teaming up with Ash, it's great, honestly. But those are really rare gems in the wasteland of standard Team Rocket appearances. What makes all of this even more frustrating is that the anime wastes so many episodes on filler and Team Rocket, so many episodes on this unnecessary and forgettable shit, yet they couldn't spare a few of those episodes for, like, I don't know, Gary,
Who?
Rocket,
Who's Gary?
Misty,
You mean
or
Team
like
Rocket?
all the interesting plot lines they set up that they just dropped for no reason.
Nah, you want
they
Team
thought
Rocket.
this was better?
Of course,
I'll leave
come
that
on,
final
look at
topic
it.
to you, John. So take us home.
You got it, Zach.
You
The
thought it
infamous
was
pacing
have
of
a good
Johto wasn't the
episode?
region's only issue. The Johto journeys also teased many things that simply never happened but
not
should.
the unresolved
The
teasers.
obvious example is the GS ball from the Orange Islands,
what?
an incredibly secret sealed Pokeball that Ash was responsible for looking after.
Okay.
It seemed like the mystery of the GS ball would finally be solved when Ash took it to Kurt, the Pokeball expert from Azalea Town, who also happens to live next to the forest where Celebi appears. That being significant because we now know that the GS ball was meant to contain a Celebi that Ash would travel with throughout the series before it was decided that Celebi would simply star in the 4th movie instead. There's even an episode in early Johto reminding us of the GS Ball's importance where a group of Quagsire attempt to steal it. Other legendary Pokemon
bad
get
you
the
got
short
holding
end of
this
the stick in
Pokeball.
Johto as well.
Gosh.
Suicune is the first Pokemon Ash encounters when he enters the Johto region, but that ends up leading to pretty much nothing. Suicune does briefly reappear later in the series, but it has more to do with Eugene than Ash. Ho-Oh is also mentioned several times throughout Johto, but doesn't make a physical appearance until the very last episode. Raikou even gets a brief cameo appearance, but never appears afterward. Discounting the movies, Lugia is essentially the only legendary Pokemon who got any spotlight in the Johto series. Then we have characters like
That's crazy,
Casey, who
actually.
appear throughout the Johto series, but then are conspicuously absent at the League. Richie appears during the Lugia arc, but even he skips out on the Johto League as well. Unlike I
Why?
mentioned earlier, Ash meets
How
a
is that
bunch
the
of
League?
potential rivals that promise to face him later on in the League, but just disappear from the series altogether. Where did they all go? There are no new rivals for Ash, it's basically just Gary again, and he's barely even there to begin with. He shows up a lot less in Johto, even though it's twice as long as Ash's Kanto run. There's just a weird amount of storylines that are either left unresolved or disappear entirely throughout Johto. And it's a shame that we never got to see them fully realized, considering it would have been way more interesting than most of the filler we got.
What do you mean? Everybody wanted that Team Rocket content. Come on now. What, you want to see Suicune? You don't want that. You want to see the mystery behind this mysterious ball? Who cares? We got more Team Rocket. You want Gary who? You mean Tracy, yes. Developing characters? What's that? You mean develop this Team Rocket storyline? Oh, that sounds really bad. But it was still
time
great.
for my final thoughts on the original series.
I feel like it was still like
After
a
watching
good
every
series,
single
great
episode of the
series.
series and
Well, I
dissecting the
didn't
good
watch all of it,
points
so
and the
maybe
bad,
I'll take it
what
back,
do I
you know.
ultimately think? Is this series really as great as we remember it to be?
Right, a lot of memorable
Meh.
moments, man.
In a lot of ways, it doesn't really hold up. It has its strong and memorable moments for sure, specifically in the beginning and end of the series, but most of the stuff in between gets pretty exhausting and mind-numbing if I'm being honest. It's just very formulaic, and they play things way too safe at times. Most people, when looking back at the original series, just think of Kanto, and I don't blame them. It's the start of the entire anime, it was a part of Pokemania, and it has a certain charm to it that's unique compared to all the other series.
Seems like
This is
the
when
problem was
Pokemon
the
was
Johto
new and fresh,
region.
and it's honestly great to look back and see where it all started for Ash. Since it was the beginning, Kanto feels very experimental, in a good way. It doesn't take gym battles too seriously like the games, and instead focuses on the fun and wacky adventures you can only have in a Pokemon world, which is actually kinda awesome. It's why we love the fillers of Kanto. And even though Johto is where things slow down tremendously, I will give it credit for having its fair share of amazing episodes hidden in there.
Okay.
It's a drag to get through, but honestly, it's so rewarding once you reach that final season. It finishes very strong, to the point where you're almost willing to forgive all of its faults. So all in all, the original series definitely isn't the best, but it still deserves credit for being the first. For the one to introduce our boy Ash, Pikachu and his amazing Pokemon, fan favorite characters like Brock and Misty, and yes, even Team Rocket for
Team
those who
Rocket,
love them.
yeah.
It's also the one to establish all the norms of the Pokemon anime world. It's the one that provided the most iconic moments that are still talked about to this day, and most importantly, provided the standard for what a Pokemon anime series should be. Without this series, there is no other Pokemon series, plain and simple. So honestly, the original Pokemon anime series deserves respect. Respect for what it started, and respect for the impact it's had on every series that followed.
Right.
Thanks everyone for watching my review of the original series. And special thanks to JPR and Niall Kelly for being a part of this project.
Watch this one next.
Be sure to check them out and show them some love.
Nice,
Last but not
nice.
least, make sure to live your life to the fullest, and I'll see you next week for my review of the Advanced Generation series.
Alright, I like that. Yeah, because I don't know exactly when I stopped watching Pokemon when I was a kid, because I remember him fighting Richie, if that's the name. Ash fighting Richie, the one that had a Pikachu as well. I want to say I remember Ash fighting Gary, but I don't think I actually do. I think it might be because I watched the A and B battle. But he made a lot of good points, a lot of great points, a lot of bad points, or not bad points, but a lot of bad stuff that happened in the anime. I didn't know that some of these characters didn't have like any character development going on. Like Misty, Gary wasn't even there really for majority of the original series. Team Rocket, yes, they were definitely very annoying early on. Like, please stop showing up every single episode and ruining stuff. Just go away. I don't remember the Johto section, so I don't know like how bad the fillers actually were, but they seem to be pretty bad. If you hearing how he was talking about it, seems like they were pretty bad and long too. But no, this is a good video right here. Again, the original series had a lot of iconic moments, a lot of memorable moments, sad moments too. He didn't mention Paul or Tobias, so I guess that's Advanced Generation. That might be better compared to the original series. That probably is because they would like have maybe the formula down from when they released episodes. Because like he said, around the Johto region, they were like the anime was moving too fast and they weren't done with Generation 3. It seems like the I guess the people behind Pokemon, they weren't done with Generation 3, so they had to stall it, put some fillers in there, which you always hate to see. You always hate to see fillers in anime, like long fillers that are boring. You hate to see them. I know that firsthand with Naruto. I know that firsthand. Especially early on too, you can't like skip the filler episodes because it's like the newest episode out at the time. Like, hey, let's watch a new episode of Pokemon. Oh, it's a filler? What can you do? You can't just skip it because that's the newest episode at the moment. You just gotta wait till next week and pray it's not a bad filler. I also forgot how like much of a coward Pikachu was early on. This gnat, I will catch this gnat one day. I swear it upon Arceus. I will catch this gnat one day. I forgot how much of a coward or like shy, not shy, but yeah, coward Pikachu was early on. Because I forgot it did not want to battle certain Pokemon. It's like, nah, I'm not doing that, Chief. You better call somebody else. But ever since episode 1, he's been with Ash for like over 20 years. You started with Pikachu, you ended with Pikachu. You love to see it. You love to see it. But I think I've been talking for too long now, so we're gonna wrap the video up here. So hope you enjoyed my reaction. Hope you enjoyed the video. The review was fun. Nice to see. I learned some things. And yeah, thank you for watching. MyCupOfTea's out of here. Arrivederci, everybody. Man, oh man, the Pokemon series. What a way to start it off. Probably a way to like put a lot of people onto Pokemon and the anime as well, just anime in general. Pokemon was definitely one of those right there. An iconic franchise that opened a lot of doors for people. Opened a lot of doors for